Hey everybody, it's great to have you here. It just keeps getting better and better and better. Elisa Romeo joining me here today for a lot of reasons. One is we're so thrilled to be talking to everybody about creating a better world, but most importantly, honoring the women that have said yes to taking their gifts out into the world. And by the way, for all of you, just so you know, I have Elisa's book right here. It's called Meet Your Soul, and a powerful guide to connect with your most sacred self. And what a time in the world for this to happen. But, as we spend time together and as you get to spend time, Elisa, with the people that come through here, there's something that gets created that's so much greater than anything we can do individually. So first, let me thank you for showing up and doing what you do, and congratulations on your book.
Thank you so much. Thanks for doing what you do and having a platform for people to share what they're doing.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, I was stuttering when I was a teenager. Who knew, right?
That's awesome. I mean, it's awesome because I was thinking of Maya Angelou. It's like her story too. I think there's so much about when the soul orchestrates where our, quote, disabilities are, where our talents are all lying. It's kind of like little golden breadcrumbs leading us towards where we're being challenged to transform.
Right.
Where we're being sent to go.
You know what the gift in stuttering it was, and I thought about this, it was when you stutter, right, you listen very, very carefully, because what's happening is you're processing so that you can answer any question with the shortest amount of words possible.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you stutter, what happens is you don't want to necessarily have a big, long answer.
Yeah. So you're thinking about how to be really efficient with what you're going to say.
Absolutely. You're like, what's the bottom line here?
I'm going to get to the point.
How could I make this be like, the answer be either yes or no?
Yeah. So you carry that with you now. That's probably integrated in your being to just do that.
It is.
I noticed that in your opening, actually. It was that you just felt like, I was like, wow, you're really, it's amazing how it felt to me like you're just like channeling, where you're being guided to go with it.
I know. All of a sudden we're over there, then we're over here, and we're just hanging out, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, though, you're absolutely right about what you said, about our disabilities, about, and growing up, that, you were actually, you see, I just stuttered right there. Growing up, you actually were called someone with a disability, or slow, or, there are a whole lot of names for it. But in the world we live in today, do you think we're starting to recognize people, in a broader spectrum of who they are and what they do?
I think some places we really are, and we're really waking up, and I think some places we're really, really not.
No, it's still in the dinosaur era.
Yeah,
right?
And that's really what this book is about, honestly. It's about how do we see people, how do we see the soul in people and in ourselves in that path, and not necessarily judge our lives from an external physical world reality view of how much money am I making, or what achievements do I have on my belt?
Right.
Are we in alignment with our soul's plan? I talk about the difference between spirit and soul, where the spirit, we have both, and they're both important, but the spirit's kind of that, it's all good, transcendent, we're all one energy.
Yes.
And that's important. But the soul she's the part of us that's attached to our soul lessons, figuring out our individual destiny, our soul contracts, incarnation, embodiment. She's attached. She gives a shit. I don't know if I can say that word out loud. But she's attached to the physical world. So sometimes we can really judge our lives. Sometimes we can really minimize the soul because we're comparing it. It's like, am I being spiritual if I have a judgment? And it's like, well, maybe that's a soul opinion.
Exactly. And we do confuse each of those. I mean, and you explained it so beautifully, because we have had misconceptions, not just about the spirit or the soul, but about how each of us is to embrace and embark upon life with them independently. What is it that you talk about here when you say meet your soul? I'm really struck by that because I could think of times in my life where I know I was meeting my soul, but it was in a happy place, right?
Yeah, and I think that's key. And I think that's one reason that it is kind of misinterpreted and avoided, because meeting your soul is not always cherries, rainbows, and unicorns. It's
right.
about incarnation. It's about, are you being you in your most fullest form? And so it's about shedding what's not you, and the shedding is sometimes really painful because sometimes we're attached to how we were raised or certain things that we've been living from that aren't in alignment, and we have to rip those false personas off. James Hillman, the archetypal psychologist, I was just reading, he has a great quote that's like, at a certain age, if you're growing, it's cancer. There's a certain point that your life should be about depth and shedding and coming into who you truly are, as opposed to just adding more and more things, skills, plans.
You know, I remember one of my mentors, a fabulous woman, Sidonia Cahill, took me on my first vision quest out into the desert, and my first encounter with a snake. And I was really struck by, you know, the rattler and the snake. And I remember, you know, the watching the shedding process. And I said, you know, doesn't that hurt? Doesn't that hurt when the snake sheds its skin? I mean, doesn't that hurt? I mean, I felt something about that. And what's interesting is the answer that she gave was, we will never know that. We will never know if it hurts more to shed, the process of shedding, than it does to carry the skin that doesn't serve us any longer.
Yeah. I would
Isn't
say
that true for us?
personally, I would choose shedding over carrying stuff longer than, you know, because there's a weight to that. For sure. There's a story in there I talk about one night my soul was really coming into my body, and I was biting onto a towel with blood coming out of my gums. It was not a gentle, but you know, birth, anyone who's delivered a baby, birth's not really gentle. I mean, it can be, and there's certain examples, but most
Not
people,
many.
most
we don't have a
people
whole
go
lot
through,
of those, right?
But it's not an irrelevant random pain. It's a pain in service of transformation, and usually it's the perfect amount of pain in order to allow the ego to admit and release the thing that needs to be transformed.
I want to ask you a question about this, and again, congratulations, our friends at Hay House, putting this message forth. What happens, from your point of view, what happens when the soul is trying to meet us? You know what I mean? It's like, hello, I'm here, Pat, I'm here, and we're like, no, like that, right?
Yeah.
And we don't pay attention.
That's most people most of the time.
No kidding, right?
Yeah, and I think it was me too. My story was that I was going along, I think I was following my dreams. I was becoming a marriage and family therapist at Pacifica Graduate Institute, studying Jungian psychology. If you had talked to me, I would be like, yeah, I'm following my dreams. I know what I'm doing, I'm following my soul. But then I had a kind of like a NDE, near-death experience, where I left my body, out-of-body experience. I could see my physical body. I was up above my self as a consciousness existing, and joined with this incredible form of love that was my soul, and remembered, had these downloads of incarnating who I was before I was Elisa Romeo, and remembering my soul contracts with my parents, my skeptical, cynical father who was a biochemist who didn't believe in any of this woo-woo stuff, you know, and what we were working out on a soul level, and all the other different kinds of things that made no sense to me at that time in my life became crystal clear. And then when I incarnated back into my body, there was this feeling like, no, because I could tell I was getting dumber and dumber, going back into the ego of the personality of Elisa Romeo. And so Meet Your Soul and all my practices and all my clients that I do all my sessions are about, what are the things that can help our ego to be the CEO to the soul, so that we're making those practical daily decisions from that source of unique love that's just yours, you know? Your soul is different than my soul, different than her soul, different than his soul. And then what is that soul doing right now here in this lifetime? And how can you best serve that beautiful form of love? And then that's what the ego's job is supposed to be, you know, bowing to the gorgeous God slash goddess self, and then being that, because that's not just
I love what you just said about the ego. about
being in
bowing.
service.
Oh,
Yeah.
about bowing.
Yeah, it takes humility because the ego wants to do its thing.
Special.
You know? Oh yeah.
Special.
The ego's
Someone
so
said
special.
someone asked me one time what was, if I had to pick a song that described the ego, right? And people ask me these strange questions, but if I had to pick a song that described the ego, what would it be? And without even blinking, I said it would be Creep by Radiohead.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
I'm
the
so
song's
special.
all about I'm
Yeah.
so special,
Yeah.
but I'm a creep.
I'm a
I'm
creep.
so special, but I'm a creep.
That is the ego.
That's the ego.
And I have the chapter on ego in here. I quote, I have a couple, psychological quotes, and then it says, "I'm Britney, bitch," because
That's right.
that's another form of ego. But I'm also not all about unbridled ego annihilation because
Right.
my background's as a therapist. So I've worked with a lot of schizophrenics, people with mental illness,
Right.
and so I think sometimes we have a knee-jerk reaction, like, God, this ego's weighing me down, so I'm just gonna bust through, and sometimes that's not done in a healthy way either. Sometimes if it's too many acid trips or ungrounded spiritual practices, that then it's not integrated and embodied the soul into the body. It's just spiritual bypassing, where we're
Right.
like, it's all good and we're zoned out, chill, and you get the sense that the other person's not in their body. They're not present. It doesn't feel like a trustable spirituality. So I'm really for it integrating and filtering through the ego, but the ego being humbled.
I want to ask you this question because one of the things you talked about, especially about spiritual bypass, I'm really taken by that. There's a flip side of that I want to ask you about, and the flip side of that is when we latch on to let me just call it a psychological anthem, so to speak, like I'm codependent.
Oh my gosh, this is my favorite topic. This is my favorite topic, yeah.
I'm Now, I'm not beating that thing up because I understand the process of codependency and what it is.
Yeah.
But doesn't that direction equally harm us in
Yes.
the way that a spiritual bypass does?
For sure.
I'm now learning to have a relationship because I've mastered my codependence.
Yeah, and it's so, I love this topic. My first,
It's a term. It's like a label, and then it becomes an identity.
My first book was initially called Energetic Codependency,
very
but
true.
and because I was teaching codependency class, I used to work in rehabs, so codependency is a huge topic,
it is.
and everywhere. And then I was doing my intuitive work and looking at energy cords, projective identification, what that looks like around the aura, and I was like, why is no one talking about this? Because codependency wants to kill. It wants to take us out. It's from a dark energy of fear, and it can easily mask as love, because I always tell people the idea of if I'm bringing someone soup when they're sick, is that from love or is that from codependency?
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, it depends, because what energy are you doing it from? Are you doing it from I'm going to cord you so you like me?
Right.
Or am I doing it from an authentic heart place connected to my soul, here's your soup?
Exactly.
And it's really challenging. So that's what actually, that question, I love that you asked that question, because that's literally why I'm so proud of this book, because the whole thing is discerning between what's coming from a fear voice that's masked, like appearing as a soul or love,
Right.
but it's actually just codependency, and then
Right.
what's actually coming from your soul, And so I have it as a
I
fear
love this.
gremlins chapter.
I love this, and I love this in a lot of ways. Let me ask you this question, around this. There's also this idea that we have to become humble. I love humility. I really do. And what that turns into is I'm a doormat.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
I
Completely
don't-
different.
Right? But this doormat aspect of our psyche is the one that would have us not stand up for ourselves in
Right.
moments where we really need to.
Right.
Where we really need to say, stop that.
Yeah.
Right?
And if you're truly connected to your soul, she will clarify that for you. That is like, you need to speak your voice on this, and over here, that's your ego reacting, and now you need to shut up and
Right.
listen to me, and you don't need to try to, I have in my first book a quote, you can't talk to crazy. It's like you can do energetic work on crazy, but sometimes it's actually crazy making to continue to try to convince someone else's ego, it's just pointless. So it's like, your soul will tell you what the situation is, when to do that, when you're wasting your breath.
Yeah. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right?
And know when to walk away.
No, to walk
know when
away.
to run. There's
Know when to run.
codependency. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't have the ego strength or ability to speak your truth or know your energetic boundaries, it is harder to do the bigger transcendent spiritual work because you're not going to have the container to kind of do that. You know, I have another example. I used to work in an incest survivor agency. So I give an example of a woman I was working with who was like, I want to turn the other cheek and go back to see my pedophile dad this Christmas. Her ego was nowhere ready to kind of, be ready for that, but she wanted to be like Jesus and turn the other cheek. And so then it's about how to be honest with really where you're at, what you're really ready to deal with, being honest with yourself.
Well, I mean, and I think something you said earlier too talks to the point that we're all individuals. We're not all on the same timeline.
For sure.
Where we take different paths, different journey, different people. Sometimes we got to remove the daggers from our back, energetic daggers from our back. Along the way, what have you discovered about yourself in writing this book?
Oh my gosh.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, you wrote the people that want to talk to you about the book. I want to know what happened to you from writing a book.
This book, I knew when it started as 140 pages of babbling notes.
Yeah.
And I was kind of looking at it like, oh no, because anytime you're working on something, you're going to be doing that.
Right.
And that's where I told you that part about biting the towel. I mean, my soul came in. She was like, if we're doing this, we're not joking around. We're not going to talk. I mean, the whole point of this book is soul not as a psychological concept. It's not just an adjective to things. Oh, this is feeling soulful, this piece of music or this food. It's like, no, your soul is an entity existing on a different dimensional plane, and she wants to join us here in her unique version of love. And that's not always, a walk in the park, because you do have to face the parts of the ego that want to run the show and be in control. So definitely throughout this book, I mean, so much changed.
Yeah.
I had a divorce. I met my twin flame. I mean, everything, my soul incarnated into my body in a new way. I can't say I'm done because I'm still here for sure, but I feel like I can honestly say that I feel very clean about being like, yeah, I did this.
Wow.
I lived through a lot of spiritual, intense boot camp to be able to feel authentic and putting out a book called Meet Your Soul.
Well, exactly. I mean, and by the way, part of this is, we're looking at this book. I'm looking at Dr. Wayne Dyer here, highly recommended. Our buddies that we've been working, Hay House, we've been working with Hay House since the very first show I ever did, really. And, when I think about this is, in some ways, this is quite an accomplishment for you. Did you ever see yourself being here doing this?
Yes.
Did you have a vision of it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, I'd like to say no, but and it's not from an ego place.
No,
it's
right.
from a...
I think we actually, by the way, I agree with you. I think we all get visions of, what I mean? Seeing ourselves sitting here.
Yeah. I mean, my soul... Sophia, who I speak to every day in my journal, and I talk in the book how everybody can do that, she was telling me for years things were going to be happening, when she told me I was going to be going through a divorce, I was not excited about that piece of news, So, I mean, she's told me a lot of things that are going to be happening, and, some of them my ego didn't love, and there's a lot about what I do now that I've also had to come out of the spiritual closet. My background was my dad was a cynical scientist, my mom's a mathematician. I did not come from a woo-woo family. It was very scary to come out and tell people, I talk to dead people. I see your soul above your head in a gold ball, and it's talking to me in my ear. It was stuff my ego had to, slowly acclimate to.
Well, yeah, not only that though, right? I mean, if you're brought up in certain religious beliefs, I mean, if you start talking to people about a gold ball, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You're going to go through an exorcism or something.
Although you look at religious paintings and I look at the halos, I'm like,
know,
that's exactly what I see.
ball.
That's what it is, people have been seeing it forever.
Yeah, one of the things that, I'm really struck by, especially in speaking with you, is what I've been talking to people about here today, and that is a change, a shift. A lot has been written about consciousness changing and shifting. I'm really struck by individual change now. This is really what I'm looking at. This whole idea of divorce and separation, almost everyone that I talk with has had that happen before their next great thing.
Yeah.
You know, myself, I had to shed a friendship that I thought would never end. I had to be like, there's that line. See that line? Do not cross over that line.
Yeah.
Divorces, you're about the fourth person I've talked to in about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Why do you think we have to let go of some things in order to step in to the soul's, you know, what I like to call the soul's tunnel
Yeah.
of expansiveness?
Well, I really believe that my first son was meant to come through that marriage, so I would never call it, a failure. It was very,
right.
it was very
Right.
exactly what it needed to be and what it was supposed to be. But what happened is this very amazing man. There was nothing wrong with our, him, or there's nothing
Right.
wrong with me. We made a contract, a vow,
Yeah.
when I didn't fully yet admit on an ego level who I was. And I had to take responsibility for that because I
Right.
made a commitment from a place where it had a fear energy to it, because it was like, I'm scared to fully be this other thing.
Right.
And that's my stuff that I had to, admit. and then, my soul said, and there's a twin flame coming for you a year before it happened, and that, someone's coming for him and he'll be okay. And I was like terrified. I thought it was the craziest thing ever. And when I met my twin flame, we both had past time memories, a lifetime of being together in other lifetimes. And it was very odd to meet someone you don't know on an ego level, but
Exactly.
to completely already be like, you're my spiritual husband. It was a weird thing to be like, whether anything happens with us, whatever happens in this lifetime, I will always know you are my spiritual husband.
You just know it sometimes, don't you?
And it's happening more and more. I just talked to someone over on the other side of the room
Uh-huh.
about finding her twin flame. I think that's coming up more and more. And it's not a projective. I remember hearing about twin flames years ago, and my background as a Jungian,
Yeah.
it's like, that just sounds like projection, romantic, okay, codependence, like to the extreme.
Right.
Like, you complete me. I just hated that Jerry Maguire phrase.
my
So I was like, you're not
God.
okay on your own. You need somebody, But what a twin flame is not about the ego. It's coming in to help you do your next level of spiritual teaching and work together. And so the reflection is your other half, and it's not easy. I believe, you hear about the runner and twin flame relationships. The reason you run is because it's the reflection of everything you can't accept as love and receive in yourself.
Right.
And that person, like my partner Adam, he loves my soul, Sophia, so much that he forces Elisa to accept her when I wouldn't necessarily do that if that wasn't a dynamic in my personal relationship.
I met him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I
And we have our
know.
little baby.
I
our
met the little
7-month-old.
baby. Yeah.
And vice versa. It's like, if my ego's doing something stupid that day, he'll just say, talk to Sophia and let me know when you're,
Right.
on the other side of this. So it's like he's as in love with my soul as I am. And I'm as in love with his soul, and I think it's sometimes hard for an ego to be like, wait, you love my soul more than my ego.
Exactly.
And I'm
That's a
identified as
problem.
my ego.
That's actually a little dilemma.
It's hard.
That's when the song creep pokes up.
Yeah.
And that's when we get to have to deal with that thing.
Definitely. In the
Right.
beginning, I hated it because I was like, I'm used to feeling powerful in relationship. I want to feel special. I want to know that I have some kind of control. And then I learned from him and from the relationship that the success of the relationship was going to completely depend on surrender and true love, not my idea of controlling or manipulating anything.
Right.
And when I say that, it might sound like, oh, she's some dark woman manipulating, but it's subtle energetic levels that we always are kind of energetically courting, doing these little things. So it's like very subtle how we can find our ego showing up in little ways.
I'm going to ask you a question I haven't talked to anybody about today, but I don't know why I'm going to ask you. Coming out in the movie theater is the movie 50 Shades of Grey.
I was just reading about this on the way here, yeah.
Were you?
Yeah.
Did you read the books?
I read part of it and I was really bored, and I thought that it was interesting to me. It was so successful as a book.
Exactly.
Because it felt to me a parody of something that could actually be really powerful.
There you go. Well said. Well said. Movie's coming out, though. And, we've heard a lot about the movie, and it's coming out. How the actors were picked, why did they pick those actors? He's not really the gray guy. She's not really this one. Beyonce does another version of Crazy in Love. which is really great. But here's the thing. This is the question. As of a couple of days ago, the trailer, I believe, had close to 300 million views.
Wow, that's crazy.
That silly little trailer about not much of anything. And I think it's like even more than that now. I don't know how much it is, right, Jess?
Yeah.
But 300
Wow.
million
You know what I think the
views.
appeal is that a lot of, I mean, okay, so then it gets tricky with the feminine and masculine thing because we're talking about energies, not necessarily biology. Because of
Right.
course there's like homosexual relationships and
Right.
and so the feminine and the masculine could show up in all different biological, you know, ways and this and that. So this is definitely not like I'm talking about necessarily a female and a male, but
That's
I'm going
right.
to talk about it like that because that's, you know, in general I think a lot of what women who are biologically female and heterosexual looking for in a masculine partner is for a man to be in his true masculine. And I think that sometimes the kind of, David Data talks about the first, second, and third stages of
Yes.
femininity and masculinity. A lot of times, you know, I think 50 Shades of Grey is going for a third stage masculine, which is the true divine masculine who has vision and wants to, as David did, I can't probably say this word on air, but you open to the divine, you know, that the
Exactly.
masculine can lead you and
Exactly.
help not be codependent. You know, you have to, if you're doing that
Exactly.
in bed, you can't.
That's not
you
a
can't,
no
yeah,
codependent
you
there.
can't.
No.
You can't kind of like less know your truth if your
Right.
woman in front of you is crying and opening. You have to not merge and match energetically, but guide, right? And so there's a lot of a parody of that can be like the 50 Shades of Grey, which is like more macho, kind of like, you know, swinging the old phallus around in a kind of like, I'm hot, whatever kind of way.
I'm wealthy. I'm powerful.
Yeah.
I'm in the top 1%, no, top 0.01% of anybody in the world. And I'm your fantasy.
Yeah.
Are we looking for fantasies?
I think
are
we're
we
looking for the truth. We're
fantasies?
all looking for the truth, but because we might not have that reflection of our soul, we might settle for a cheap, you know, Cheeto version of delicious cheese.
Exactly.
So I think 50 Shades of Grey, and one reason it's probably so huge is because there's a kernel in there
Right.
that people are like, I want someone to come and see me truly deeply and take me on a sexual, spiritual opening journey where I'm being met in an intimate and incredibly like soul, you know, connective setting. But I think so many people feel a sadness, a desperation, a hole about what's in their personal lives around that. So it's easier to kind of project,
Filling a void?
yeah,
Are we
fill a
filling a
void and
void?
project onto a thing. But then again,
It's
there's a place for
fascinating.
escapism.
I'm
I think.
telling
I
ya.
mean, I've been known to watch a Kardashian episode or two, so it's like, you know, sometimes you gotta eat the Cheetos.
Kardashian and Chelsea lately sitting here, right?
Oh yeah, why
Chelsea
not?
Handler.
You know,
Well, I mean,
we are humans. So.
we are human. I mean, thank you for this time. I mean, it's really interesting, you know, to be able to talk about this because I think we're all trying to make sense of the world we're living in today at so many levels, and be in the world in a way where we can each contribute. You know, so when you write a book or when you're talking with people about Meet Your Soul, you know, you're for me, when I think about this, it's really an invitation into a life of divine energetic expansion.
That's exactly
Because
it.
the soul is about that. I mean, it's not, you know, we're not talking about something that, you know, that's going to, you know, jerk us around from here to here.
No.
You know,
She's trustworthy. She's a trustworthy guide. And for her highest good is for the highest good of humanity. When you follow your soul, you are serving the greatest good, but in your unique way that you're meant to do it. And so it's like, I just love, like, I get so excited when someone's like, I'm connecting to my soul, I'm getting the information. Because that's just gonna, the image I saw initially, Sophia sent me was like, when you're little, do you have those light brights where you
Yes.
put the, you know, every person reading the book is gonna be like putting their light bright in, you know, making that established connection of, yes, I will incarnate my particular form of love. I'm going to follow this journey and I'm going to like be this here, you know, as an honor. It's an honor to be incarnated as a human at this time and to really take advantage. I mean, my whole thing is when I left my body, I looked out, I saw, oh, when we die, you get that life review. The only thing that matters is to what degree were you being your soul down here? And that's
Wow.
all that matters, you know? It's like nothing didn't matter what I achieved or this or that. It's like, was I being her or did I miss the boat? And you know, do it again another time, go it again another round, or, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, I think this round is going to work just fine for me. And we are not doing this over
Well,
again.
you're obviously doing your soul, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
you're
Wow,
listening
thank you
and
so
following.
much. I mean, it's
Thank
so
you.
great to chat with you. Tell everybody how they can get a copy of the book, how they can find out more about you. And I hope we'll do this again sometime.
That'd be amazing. So my website's www.elisaromeo, E-L-I-S-A, spelled like Romeo, R-O-M-E-O.com. And there's some free gifts now if you pre-order before March 3rd.
Great book, everybody. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thanks.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.